Hi, my name's Meredith Mustard, and I am here in To Imagine Studios, and this is a little bit of information for our Sunday afternoon art. In case you want to participate in what we're doing this week, I always introduce some little thing, but this has been on my mind, something I really love to do, and it's, I collect a lot of papers. I'll show you. I'll take you a tour on some of the things. And a lot of them are just too bright white, too new looking, even some of the vintage books and pages. So staining them and giving them that unpredictable kind of staining, I just love. So I've stained with, and what we're going to do, with black tea and turmeric. That is my favorite combination. So it gives you a little bit of yellow and a little bit of the tea color. On the weekend, I will explain how to do that. But right now, what you just need to do if you want to do it is collect the materials. What I do is I'll make a big pot of it. I have a huge pot that I used to make soup in. And so you'd need a big pot, big enough to put packets of paper in. So those are two of the materials that you would want to gather. I also do some staining with coffee. These are some out-of-date instant coffee packets, and just mixed with water, and they make a really wonderful color too. And then I just recently got a little atomizer bottle, so I can spray a little splatter of coffee onto work, which sometimes just pulls everything together. So other materials are for this process are what we call rusty bits. I live in Maine. I walk my dog on a country road, and I'm always on the lookout for rusty bits. Cars seem to just throw these bits off to the side. So I have a collection of some beautiful rusty bits I found by the side of the road. The first time, before I started collecting rusty bits, I had a container of very tiny little nails that were rusty, and they work too. They make a little, little specks of rust. And so they'll help stain the paper too in interesting kinds of ways. So let me show you some of the papers. Oh, and you'll need some string too. This is real cheapy twine string for tying the packets up. So I have some pages from a type specimen book from the 1940s, I think. So there's some just interesting pieces of type. That's what, ultimately, I will use these papers. I've collected lots of interesting papers because I like them, but I didn't know what to do with them. But I'm now collaging with them. So using a little bit of type in collage is, I think, very challenging, but fun if you can pull it off. Okay, so I'm going to tour you on the papers that I've collected. I've collected a couple of old, what are these called? Accounting books. And this one was from 1870. So the writing in it is just beautiful. It's wonderful. And then somebody used it for collecting their, and pasting in all their, what are these little advertisements for plays. So lots of interesting type and interesting words, because I love how random words will show up. Like here, home from the sea. Somewhere that could just show up because I don't look for the words. Anyway, I've also collected some old handwritten, this is pretty old stuff, Japanese receipt book pages. So I'm going to see what happens with them, because sometimes these things will offset onto another piece of paper. Lots of maps. So I've collected old map books, old geography books. Some of the paper is just too fragile to do this process with, but this is strong enough and not that old. I bet this is from the 50s. But maps are just lovely, lovely, especially the collage work. I do a lot of jelly plate printing, and when I went to collage with them, the background was so white, it just shouted out. So sometimes I put them into journals, and it's really nice to tone it down. So staining them is has been the perfect solution. I think I also, somewhere in here, I have a little bit of calligraphy. So I've done some calligraphy quotes. Now some of this ink may be water soluble, so we'll see what it does. I love this quote. You would not enter a brightly lit room and look for the dark switch. Gratitude and appreciation keep the light on. What is your dark switch? Ha, something to think about. Also, I've collected, this was from a junk store in Pennsylvania that just had wonderful stuff. Some old composition books from, sometimes you can tell if you read through them the date. Sometimes I can't tell. But the handwriting is always interesting, and sometimes the words are really interesting too. Or drawings. This one has some biology drawings in it. Love that. I also love medical books and the illustrations in them. Here's some graph paper. Just looking for different kinds of paper. This is clear print. So it's a kind of a vellum. I have an old Life 50th anniversary from 1986, so it's a lot of old pictures, and I'll pull some of those out for mine. More maps. These are maps from the local secondhand bookstore. You know, I get things for a few bucks, and these are maps from the Second World War. And then these are nautical charts. Another kind of map that's just beautiful, and the staining will add something to it. I know, because I've done that before. This is another thing that I found in secondhand stores up here. A lot of these topographical maps of, so this is the Danforth Quadrangle, and it's by the U.S. Geological Survey in Washington, D.C. This one was dated 1958. This was from a really funky book I got in a secondhand store of maps of transportation in the United States. The paper is kind of coated. I don't know what it'll do, but we'll see. Some handmade papers from Nepal, I think, or India. Now these have definitely some dye in them, and my experience has been that they will offset a little bit, and they will also take the tea stain and do some beautiful things. More, these are some of these little prayer papers that have gold on them. They'll be fun. And then there's always just whatever papers you have around that are just plain white paper. This is some rice papers, I think. These look like they're handmade. And then photographs. You can do photographs of things. I tend to go for things that are sort of ominous, or anonymous, and sometimes there's somebody in them. I don't even know who it is. But some of these will discolor in the most amazing ways. So they're definitely worth it. Okay, here's some onion skin paper. You know, if you're making journals, really nice to have different kinds of paper. Here's somebody from Bonnie from the Sunday afternoon group that we were meeting in person, brought me, that she got at the Goodwill big thrift center, and it's fascinating. Nice big sheets. Maps from a large atlas, and you know, these atlases are all out of date now, so it's not like you really can do anything with them other than make art out of them. So I pick ones that of places that I'm interested in, and here's the middle of the country: Tennessee, Mississippi. There's a little bit of Alaska and the Yukon Territory. I think one of these had Hawaii on it. Yeah, Hawaii. That'll be fun. Now I have tea stained some of this kind of paper. This is from Nepal, and it's really beautiful when it's So this has some print on it. And this I thought would be interesting because it's a black paper, so it probably has some dye and then gold paint or ink. Sometimes that gold will offset. More of those papers. And that's kind of what I'm going to be working with. But look around and see what kind of paper you have at your house or in your studio that you might want to mess around with. And I hope I've thought of everything. Oh, wait a minute. Here's another one. This is a book of birds of Pennsylvania. And it's black and white. Everything's black and white. But I love all these little birds. And I'm going to put some of these in. At some point, I might just take a book like this and stick it in the tea all together and see what happens. Because once you stain it, it will suggest other things. And then it could be a book that that you can go back in and completely change. What is it called when they do that? I can't remember. There's a name for doing that to books. But source of books, thrift stores, garage sales, yard sales, and some libraries. Of course, right now, it's hard to get to any of these sources, but for the future. A lot of libraries are getting rid of old books, and I asked about them, and what I found out was the paperback books can be recycled, but the hardback books go in the trash. So I always feel like I'm recycling them, so I don't feel guilty about using some of those old books. So thank you. I hope you'll join us on Sunday. I'll post something. Maybe I'll post it on Saturday so that you can do it on Sunday, so you can see the rest of the process. I will cook up a whole pot of tea and tell you, what the quantities are. And good luck. And then if you make anything of any interest whatsoever or have any interesting experiences with this process and you do try it, please post something on our Sunday afternoon art page. And if there's anybody you know who might be interested, they can find that page and they can request to be on it. And then I send them back a note and say, yep. So see you later.